Exactly is the Metropolitan Transportation Planning process? At Federal Highway, we describe it as a 3C process where it's cooperative, comprehensive, and continuing. And what we mean by that is it's cooperative, that lots of folks are involved, not only transportation specialists, but resource agencies, state DOTs, local governments, the public. It really needs to be something where all voices are heard as we identify transportation projects and plans and programs. Comprehensive, what we mean by that is that it doesn't just look at one aspect, doesn't just look at traffic counts and volumes, but we're thinking about how does this impact sensitive resources, how does this impact other communities. We really have to take a multidisciplinary approach when carrying out the planning process, because it's not just one thing. We really have to take a breadth wide look at all the implications of any decisions that come from the process and identifying plans or programs. We describe it as continuing because this isn't, planning just doesn't stop. It's not a one-time thing and it's done. As some of you may be familiar, there's something called a regional transportation plan, and that happens every 5 years. So it's consistently going on. We're looking at new data sources, we're checking in with the public and stakeholders. It never really stops. To kind of break down the planning process in a series of steps is, of course, talking about planning, taking in all those different data sources and information needs, but it also gets to the planning, the project selection, prioritization process. That's a really important part because, at the end of the day, we can have all these plans and programs, but what's actually getting implemented on the ground? So the transportation planning process is supposed to be the process in which it's transparent. Anybody can really understand how different decisions are made, how different projects are funded, and following that in a stepwise fashion. So why is that important? We feel that the transportation planning process is important because it inherently sets up a framework for collaboration. The TPO has a public participation plan, which explicitly acknowledges different points in the planning process in which other stakeholders and the public are engaged. Even in the federal regs, it requires that there's collaboration that has to happen in projecting revenues and programming projects. It really sets up this framework to bring everyone to the table. And not only does it have this framework for collaboration, but it also guides nearly $1 billion in Tennessee on how transportation funding is established. The process sets this framework and helps prioritize those regional needs to best determine the best solutions for a particular region. Chattanooga is unique in itself, the different needs, the different infrastructure, infrastructure condition, it's not one size fits all. And the planning process adapts for that because every place is going to be a little bit different. The needs are going to be different. So it's very much scalable and unique to the individual geography that is carrying out this planning process. So I mentioned earlier with that first 3C that it's a collaborative process. So there are a lot of folks involved. As some of you probably know, the decision-making authority in the Chattanooga TPO is the executive board, and the executive board is informed by recommendations from the technical coordinating committee, from staff, from different public meetings. A lot of different folks are involved, with the MPO executive board being the primary decision-making authority. Chattanooga is a bi-state area, so Tennessee DOT as well as Georgia DOT are important members of delivering the planning process. Transit operators, CARTA, of course, is an important entity. Citizens, local jurisdictions, interest groups. everybody has a seat at the table in the transportation planning process. So now that we've discussed a little bit about what the process is, who's involved, let's take it down to the Chattanooga area. So we see that there are 5 key components or 5 key deliverables that are an output of the planning process. I mentioned earlier the regional transportation plan, which really sets that big picture vision for the region, outlines the goals, objectives, performance framework, a list of projects through at least the next 20 years. The transportation improvement program is kind of that short range version of the long range plan. It's a 4-year fiscally constrained plan that documents all of the projects that are expected to obligate funds or expend funds in a 4-year period. So these are things that you can expect to be delivered on a shorter time frame. The congestion management process is an additional input of the transportation planning process, and that sets up a whole framework for identifying congestion needs, strategies, performance measures for what works the best for Chattanooga to mitigate and plan for congestion on your roadways and in a multimodal way. I mentioned earlier that the public participation plan is also a key document. That's the one that outlines all of the different planning requirements and gives discrete points in the process in which the public or other stakeholders can expect to be involved. So this is one that we use quite a bit at Federal Highway, just to make sure that the planning process is being carried out in a way that has been committed to in a particular geography. And then the last core document is the Unified Planning Work Program. And essentially what that work program is a 2-year document that outlines all of the different transportation planning activities that are expected to be carried out. So if there's a plan update coming up, or if certain data needs to be purchased, or a corridor study is going to be carried out in the region, and then over the next 2 years, that would be documented in that Unified Planning Work Program. This next slide reiterates the connections that I was describing previously on how these 5 core programs or outputs of the planning process really work. As you can see here, the UPWP informs that long range plan, or the MTP is another acronym that we have for it. It informs when the CMP is going to be updated, what sort of expenditures are expected to occur to support that update. And then the long range plan, the MTP, kind of feeds basically to every deliverable in the planning process, where the long range plan will set that vision and will list not only projects, but policies and programs that would need to be carried out. So it doesn't have to just be a new roadway or a new greenway. The MTP can outline some big programmatic initiatives, whether it's transportation demand management or other things that will help the region realize its desired transportation future. And as you can see on the outline of this graphic, that public involvement is so important throughout this. It never really stops. As documented in the public participation plan, there are many opportunities for folks to get involved and have their voice heard in the future of the transportation system in Chattanooga. So kind of bringing it back to, again, why we're here. I'm, again, a part of the Federal Highway Administration, and in the regs, it says that every 4 years we need to perform this evaluation, and we do it in partnership with our colleagues at the Federal Transit Administration. So Andres Ramirez from FTA Region 4 is my co-lead in this, and we today was our first day meeting with the TPO and DOT and the transit agency, and just discussing the different aspects of the planning process. So we talked about the congestion management process, the transportation improvement program, and it really provided for an opportunity to do a reflection on how the various plans and programs are being carried out and kind of what the vision is, moving forward. So what we would really like to hear from you is your opinion of the transportation planning process. It's just some things to kind of mull over. Have you been involved in the planning process? If you have, what are some of your views? Do you feel like you have enough opportunity to weigh in? Do you feel like you have enough information to give input that that effectively communicates your concerns? And do you feel like you have enough information to weigh in so that the executive boards, who again are the ultimate decision makers, those are the policy officials and the elected leaders, that they can hear your voice to make decisions on behalf of the Chattanooga region? So those are just a few questions I'd really love for you to mull over, what your experiences have been. I know the planning process can kind of be nebulous, but what we're really looking for is, how have you interacted with the different plans and programs? Did you feel you have enough information and enough opportunity to participate? It really is all about that process. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we'll use your feedback today. We will take your comments and summarize them in that certification report that we'll be issuing later this summer. Your comments are critical to inform the federal team's view on how the transportation planning process is carried out. I mentioned earlier how important that cooperative nature is, and the public is an important stakeholder in that. So your comments are valid, and we definitely take them into consideration as we perform the evaluation and eventual certification of the planning process. So that was just a short presentation about why we're here today, what the planning process is. There are a few ways to give feedback, whether the first option, since you're here, would be to have a conversation in the Q&A or in the chat pod. But if that's not something that you'd like to take on, we also have a survey that's on the TPO's website. And Karen, if you wouldn't mind to add that to the chat pod so folks could have that as an opportunity to weigh in as well, that would be great. Or you could also email me or Andres your comments on the planning process. We're accepting feedback through April 23rd. So if you have immediate reactions, we would love to have a conversation right now about it. But I wanted to make sure that you knew that there were multiple ways to give feedback, whether that was through the survey or at a later email, or sending an email at a later date. So that was all that I had. Again, the most important thing that we would really love to get out of this is your feedback. So Karen, would you mind taking a look at the Q&A for me and letting me know if there are any questions or anything like that?
Sure. So I'm Karen Rennick, and I'm Deputy Director of the Regional Planning Agency and the TPO Coordinator. And so just to orient you, if you have not used the Zoom Q&A before, there should be an option on computers. It's usually at the bottom of the screen, a little Q&A. And you can type in a question or comment there, and we'll be going through those and responding. Sometimes on a mobile device, you kind of have to click around, but there's usually some sort of Q&A option. So if you want to go ahead and just send a test, just so you know it got through, we can respond and just say, yes, we've got it. Elizabeth, I can go on mute. I don't know if you stop sharing your screen, you'll probably be able to see the Q&A, but I don't know if you want to reference the presentation. So however you would like to handle that.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I got the Q&A up, and I'll be happy to pull up the slides if necessary. And thank you, Karen. I just noticed that you added the survey to the chat pod, so thank you for doing that.
Sure. So if folks want to go ahead and find the Q&A and send a test, I will just respond that we got it, or you can be typing in any comments or questions you may have.
Hi, Ms. Lopez. Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Maybe Karen can. Maybe it's my.
Thanks for joining us, Netchi. I think we're okay right now. Elizabeth, just to make sure that we're not having any problems, can we ask one of our state or federal partners to go ahead and just send us a quick Q&A comment so we know that it's working, and it could be that folks are just taking more time. Thank you, Sean. I received that. So we'll just give folks a little bit more time to get a comment in.
Thanks, Robert, for letting me know that it's not, that my audio isn't the issue.
Okay, Elizabeth, do you see, are you able to see the question in the chat box?
Yes, thank you. So the question is, if you're new to the process, what is the best way to get up to speed on how the process works, and what sort of feedback is actionable? So that's a really great question. And I'll start that, but maybe Karen, if you'd like to add something afterward, that would be great as well. So if I were somebody new in the Chattanooga region on the best way to get up to speed, I think one of the first places I would go would be the TPO's website. They do a really great job of, giving background, all the different plans and programs, all the meetings. They've got, I think, a pretty active social media following. So I would start with their website. Also, the TPO has undertaken this education campaign, which I think really goes out to try to answer some of those kind of fundamental questions about what the TPO is. And then the last suggestion that I would give would be to, again, look at that public participation plan. It does a really nice job of getting a basic understanding of all of the different plans and programs that the MPO carries out. And then again, those specific decision points in which your feedback could be incorporated into the planning process. And your feedback is so valued. So I think that's another really good resource to go to if you wanted to learn more about the metropolitan planning process in Chattanooga. Karen, I don't know if you'd like to add anything to that.
Sure. I think a great place to start, and Elizabeth mentioned it, were kind of our frequently asked questions brochures. There's about 9 of them that answer some just really basic questions about what, regional transportation planning. And I'll put a direct link to that in the chat box. Also, we've kicked off our regional transportation plan, which will really, be sharing a lot of information. So if you send us an email, we'd be glad to put you on that list and just, share some resources with you. And I'll put our email in the chat box also.
And like Karen mentioned, and we just got another question about what that TPO website address is. And as Karen mentioned, she'll put that in the chat pod.
Sure. And I will, it's simple, it's TPO at Chattanooga.gov. But that goes to all the TPO staff, and whoever can, jump on it first and answer your question, we'll be glad to do that. So I'm putting that in, and then also I'll share the resources for the kind of the frequently asked questions to get you started.
Oh, that's a great resource. Karen, I don't know if we can have a dialogue or if we have to stick through the chat pod, which is fine, but I would be curious for the 2 folks that commented in the question answer pod is, how did you find out about this meeting and the TPO? Would really love to hear a little bit of your perspective on what brought you here today and sort of your interest in the planning process, because we're so glad that you're here.
Sure. If someone would like to raise their virtual hand, if they would like to, give some thoughts, I can, enable you to speak if you would like to, answer Elizabeth's question that way. And I'm just looking to see if anyone raises their virtual hand just to give some thoughts on the process. Okay. Let's see, Lanisha Lake. I'm enabling, allowing to talk, and Ms. Lake, you should be able to speak.
Hello, thank
Hi.
you. I heard about this meeting from another community organization that I'm with called Caleb. One of our members was telling us about it, and our direct task force is called the Economic Mobility Task Force, and we deal a lot with transportation. So I was very interested in what's going on.
Awesome. And you said Kayla. How would you spell that acronym?
Caleb, CALEB.
Oh, Caleb. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're part of the Economic Mobility Transportation Group. That's task force. Yeah. Okay. Do you mind sharing what kind of work that the task force does, or?
So far we have are working to establish a community land trust in Chattanooga. Okay. And that will be providing houses for low income people. We're working on trying to figure out a good jobs plan for Chattanoogas who are struggling. And we are also trying to figure out transportation ideas for different people around the city.
Awesome.
Trying to see if we can fill in where Carter is.
Okay. That's really important work. Have you been a part of any of the TPO's planning processes? I think Karen mentioned earlier that they're gearing up to kick off their long range plan. Have you been a part of that in the past?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I don't want to speak for the TPO, but I can share that they are a very data rich and progressive organization, and maybe there'd be opportunities in the future to share information and connect with your organization into the long range planning process.
Okay, I would very much appreciate that.
We'd love to get, if you can email us just so we can make contact with you, and then we'll share some additional resources that might be of interest kind of based on what you shared.
Okay. And would that be to Ms. Watkins' email?
No, if you can email the TPO at chattanooga.gov, that kind of simple one, that would probably be easiest.
You said TPO at Chattanooga.gov. Okay.
That'd be great. We'll respond as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Netchi, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, would you mind sharing with me which organization you're with, or if you're just, an interested member of the public?
I think Netchi is having problems with her speaker. She is here to help do some interpretation if needed. And so
okay.
she is our stalwart participant. So she's here listening in, and then if we need her, we can lean on her. And another comment in the Q&A.
Absolutely. Can everybody see the Q&A, or is it just the panelists?
Think that they're not able to see the Q&A, I think is how it's set. You might want to read the question.
Yeah, I'll read that. It's a really insightful comment. So someone shared, on a personal level, there's been a lot of growth in bus congestion close to me, so I've become interested in the process. Further, transportation decisions impact so many levels of our communities as far as access that is in an area. As the last speaker stated, transportation affects jobs, housing, and all levels of our lives, whether or not we choose to be a part of it. Yeah, that's a very astute observation. I'm just going to pick up on one thing that you mentioned about congestion. So there is a congestion management process that the TPO undertakes to identify recurring congestion, spot congestion, sets up a network to identify, to prioritize different projects to address those congested areas. There's a lot of data out there where partners in the region are looking at that. So I would encourage you to maybe take a look at the congestion management process. The TPO is also about to update their CMP. So I think that's another opportunity to get involved. And I see Karen just added a link into the chat pod about a survey that they have going on. So I don't know, maybe Karen or you and our Melissa, would you mind talking a little bit about the CMP update and then the opportunity to weigh in?
Ewan, do you want to take that? And Ewan, if you can't see, I put the online survey link in the chat box.
Okay, let me see, and let me turn my video on. Yes, sure. We start the CMP process in last December, and we plan to finish that in early spring in 2022. Like Elise was talked about, we are updating the goal and objective for the congestion, the CMP congestion management process. I mean, kind of like we would like to see what will be the priority that we will look at, and what kind of strategy and solution that will help with reduce the congestion. And also we can also looking at is that what people think about, is there a congestion here in town or not? Because some people, I mean, depends on the experience and background. And some will think that we have a really, heavy congestion here, and some might not. But that would be good to know if anybody can answer the survey and help us to understand what your experience with the congestion is, and what you think will be the good solution for help us to reduce the congestion. And also, the congestion management process is not just looking at the automobile traffic, so interstate highway. Actually, we were looking at how if there be some other solution that will, like if we like look at the transit or the sidewalk or build more sidewalk or encourage people to the bike or ride transit, that might help with the congestion. And also, is there another way to reduce the traffic demand? Like if we might want to look into the linkage between the land use and transportation. So that could be a different way, different strategy to help us to reduce the congestion. Mm-hmm. So any other question about the CMP process? I really encourage you to everybody to answer this survey. That really gives us a better understanding of the congestion instead of just crunching the data.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak that is here as an attendee? And if you raise your hand, I will just give you the ability to speak in the meeting. Okay, Elizabeth, there's a Q&A question there at the end. If you would like to cover it, or ask someone.
Okay, I'll read it out, but maybe if somebody from the TPO could cover it. It's a good question about regional collaboration. So Shannon asked if someone could speak to the TPO footprint or maybe geography and then the importance of regional collaboration. I guess I'll just make a few comments about it again. Collaboration is one of those 3 C's. It is so important. And, you know, MPOs have their metropolitan planning boundaries, but we understand that transportation issues, you know, transcend boundaries, transcend jurisdictional lines. So it's definitely very important, but I'd really love if somebody from the TPO wouldn't mind speaking on maybe some activities or how that influences the planning process that's carried out in Chattanooga.
Melissa, do you want to speak to the regional transportation plan itself?
So my video is disabled, so someone may need to enable that. I tried to turn it on.
Let's see if that helps you.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go. Sure, I'd be happy to take it for the regional transportation plan. And so each time we undergo a regional transportation plan, we obviously have a set of stakeholders and public that has attended past meetings or contributed to various pieces of the process. But I think that's a ever-changing situation. And so oftentimes, like with our upcoming 2050 plan, we are attempting to better orchestrate revisions to those stakeholder groups or committees. And right now we are in the process of sending out a letter to ask various agencies and organizations, some community types of organizations to be part of our community advisory committee. So I think there's a list of over 60 organizations and representatives that will be asked to be part of that community advisory committee. So I think that those are partnerships that we make over time, and we have a list, but if we hear of new organizations that would like to be part of that, we welcome new members and new opportunities to collaborate. We have recently been talking with the Thrive Regional Partnership on their freight coalition and their transportation committee to partner with us on the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan freight profile and updates to that. So we feel like making sure that we're good networking going on between some of the coalitions that may be established for the broader region, because we know that Thrive is a 16 county region. So we are looking to make use of already established or broader organizations. The same with our human services coordinated planning process. We also coordinate with partners beyond our TPO boundary for that. And I think Karen's probably going to speak to the boundary itself, or maybe Ewan, I don't know which, but that's kind of a more general approach to how we handle advisory committees or coordinating with established partners that are interested in transportation efforts within our TPO area.
And that TPO area is Hamilton County and all of its jurisdictions, Catoosa County and its jurisdictions, and then the northern portions, and it's kind of meanders a little bit through Dade and Walker counties. Okay, again, if anyone would like to raise their hand, any attendees, and I will enable you to speak, or we still have the Q&A box open if anyone would like to use that to type a comment or question.
I have a question for Lanisha, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot again. It was great to hear about the organization you're with, Caleb, and then the transportation work that you've been working on with that task force. But I'm curious about if there are any other communication methods that you think are particularly effective since you work in the transportation realm. What are some of your impressions on the best way to share and receive feedback from your experience in your organization?
We send a lot of emails and random phone calls and a lot of Facebook communication.
Okay, so social media, phone calls, email have been really effective.
Yeah.
So thinking about your organization, maybe if it was of interest to you, maybe you guys could subscribe to the TPO's listserv, stay in contact and with the contact information that Karen provided. But again, as I mentioned earlier, this is all about the process and how we can, more fully fulfill those 3 C's of collaboration and continuation and comprehensive process. So any suggestion that anybody has, definitely open to hearing that. So thank you for being willing to come off mute and share your experience.
Have y'all shared the information with maybe the library?
We do share information at the libraries when they're open. So we have a major document like the plan that Melissa mentioned, or or a program where it talks about how about projects. We do put those in the libraries, not in all of them, but that is one of our methods. Is that kind of where you're thinking about putting information and then getting information back at the libraries?
I know we used to. I don't think we do as much anymore.
Okay. Is that helpful if we do have information like someone, because usually we would advertise and send an email and put something on our web or Facebook page that says, hey, we have a big important plan that we would want to make sure we get your feedback on. You could either look at it on the website, or you could go to the library and take a look at it. Is that a helpful tool for you to, or the people you work with to go to the library, be able to read a document there, kind of skim through or do whatever, and then give us feedback through like a postage paid postcard, or email us or call us then? Is that helpful, do you think?
Yeah, that could be a start.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So we have a comment in the Q&A where someone shares that libraries are fantastic outreach sources. Those that have their own websites can announce public meetings as well. I think those are both good points. And it's interesting in the kind of COVID reality that we're in now. We're having to do more stuff online for safety purposes, but I agree. I think libraries are a place where they're accessible to all members of the community, regardless of income or access. They're usually really widely dispersed. And I think utilization of the website, again, is another great suggestion. I think the TPO, personally, I think they do a good job of notifying folks of when things are coming up, but it's another good source to share information and promote that collaboration. So I think that's a good point.
Elizabeth, I'd like to add, again, I'm Melissa Taylor. I'm Director of Strategic Long Range Planning, and I handle the Long Range Transportation Plan. And we are, for the first time, based on the comments here about the libraries, I thought it might be important to note that we are, for the first time, entertaining what we're calling an open house computer lab that we would be doing at the libraries. So we're working with the City of Chattanooga IT department to see if we can put our digital open house forum that we're going to launch on a public computer at the libraries, and possibly some of the Chattanooga YFD centers, the Youth and Family Development Centers, so that people who may not have computers that run at the speeds that would be able to download or view the information more easily, that they could walk into the library and actually pull open the open house meeting and see and view the materials there online as well. So that is something new that we're trying to do, and hopefully that will go well and provide an additional opportunity where people can feel like they're participating in the public meeting and seeing the same digital online materials that everyone else would have access to.
Thanks for sharing that, Melissa. I think that's a really innovative approach, especially if there are barriers such as, having a solid internet connection or even having a computer, that there are other opportunities for folks to get involved and not have those barriers because of community resources like libraries. So thank you for sharing that.
Elizabeth, I don't see any more questions in the Q&A, and I don't have any attendees with their hand raised.
Thank you, Karen. So we've talked a little bit about communication methods. We talked a little bit about folks' backgrounds. The TPOs did a great job kind of talking about some upcoming efforts for those of you who are interested to participate. So I hope that those resources are of value to you. Open to any other feedback, whether it's a statement or a question. We've got about 15 minutes left, but again, this won't be the only opportunity to give feedback or ask questions. Plenty of resources, again, that were listed in the chat pod, but for the purposes of this review, since, it's Federal Highway and Federal Transit Administration who are doing an evaluation of the process, will be issuing a certification. Again, anything that you have through April 23rd, we would love to hear. We have to set a deadline because we have to write the report and get it issued before July 14th. So again, if this isn't your only opportunity, but if there's anything else anybody has to offer or a question to ask, we're here for you. All right. Another good comment in the Q&A. The person said they're saying this with a smile, but not everyone is a visual learner or reader of dense material. So a web-based YouTube style outreach is also helpful. I could not agree more, and I appreciate that you mentioned that you are a data geek, because I feel I identify with that term as well. But yeah, I think those short, quick videos where you can, comprehend complex information without going through a 200-page report is definitely a very effective outreach method. And I wonder if I could ask somebody from the TPO to maybe speak a little bit about the biteable videos that you've created, and the different, other visualization techniques that the TPO has employed.
Sure, I can start off. We agree, absolutely. And we understand that a lot of what we're talking about can be very complex and multifaceted. And it's a data-driven process. So sometimes we spend a lot of time talking about that data. We have been using what they're Biteable. It's just the company that we use, the app, I guess. But we've been trying to do, you can make around a 2 to 3 minute video. I don't know if anyone got to this meeting and watched or saw on our website our video about certification review, but it's about 2 minutes and 15 seconds of explaining why we do this. So we have one on our participation plan, which is really kind of talks about how we plan on engaging folks. Probably most people don't want to read that 80-page plan, but it's about a 2-minute video that explains briefly the purpose of the plan. Melissa's team has done one on bike ped counts. That's kind of that data geeky thing again, but to be able to kind of easily understand, watch that video, understand how it's being used. So we are doing more of that. We had a webinar series about kind of getting to know the TPO, and all those are most of the TPO explainer video is on our YouTube channel, but that really is intending to be sharing information maybe in the time when you can watch it, and then either kind of just real quick overview or a little bit more in-depth detail, which is what the that kind of about the TPO video is. But we agree with you. We are trying to do more of that. So any ideas you have, other than kind of that video, but really in the past year we probably put out 5 or 6 of those, and we're also doing a little bit more recording of meetings and then just putting those on the website just for transparency. When did you talk about that? What was that about? So we're really trying to make an effort to shift to hosting more of those.
I guess one other thing that I would add to that is in the chat pod, I believe Melissa linked to the RTP website, the chcrpa.hub.arcgis.com. There's a lot of really impressive kind of visualizations of things that you can interact with, different story maps. So if you're a data geek and are interested, I personally, found that tool was really a fascinating way to kind of interact with data and kind of have a visual a way to kind of comprehend some complex data. So it'll be really great to see how that hub continues to evolve. I know the TPO will probably plan to add more to it, but it already has an excellent start. So I encourage folks to look at the links that were provided in the chat pod when you have time to take a look at them, because they're really impressive. So we will continue to be here through the end of the hour. It's through 6 p.m. Eastern. But again, we really appreciate the feedback that was shared here. Definitely learned some things that will inform the report. I hope you found that it was valuable to you, especially those resources that were linked in the chat pod. I know it's getting close to dinner time, so if there isn't anything else to share, don't feel obligated to hang on. But we will definitely be here again through 6 p.m. Eastern. Just wanted to put in another plug that that there's a survey out there. If there's other feedback you think about, or please feel free to send me an email. I'm going to add my email to the chat pod just so you have a quick place to just copy and paste it. And please feel, that went to all panelists. So feel free to shoot me an email with any feedback that you have on the planning process in Chattanooga. Again, thank you for your time here today, and we'll continue to hang around to ask any questions or comments. But maybe to round us out, Karen, if I can kind of prompt you to give a little more background. Could you just reiterate for the folks on the call the different outreach methods and different ways that they could engage with the TPO in the future?
Sure. So we go from low tech to high tech, and you can always call us. We staff the TPO, but we are staff at the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Agency. So a lot of you already might interact with us on the zoning and area planning and subdivision side of our shop. So you can contact us through the RPA. We're happy to just talk to you on the phone. The email address is, again, we try to keep it simple, tpo@chattanooga.gov. That's just a good way to make sure that email is picked up right away and we can answer any questions you might have. We also have monthly meetings of our technical coordinating committee and executive board. They alternate months. When they're in person, they're here in downtown Chattanooga at the Development Resource Center on Market Street. Right now, they've been virtual. If you kind of want to see what those look like, you can go to our YouTube channel and just pick one of the TPO meetings, and you can just watch to your heart's content. But that'll give you kind of an idea of what those meetings look like. We also have some of those cool tools that we posted or talked about today. Some of them, require a little, getting online and doing a little bit more going through some reading, putting some stuff on maps, and it's kind of a little bit more of a learning experience. We'd love to hear that. Some of them can be simple surveys. We talked about that congestion survey. If you just want to call us and leave us a voicemail, that's great too. We also have a postcard. We can either just send it to you and you can send it back. But that's, a couple ways that we try to do low tech to high tech. But if there's a way we haven't reached out that you're interested in, either through an email just to let you know what's going on, or another method, we would want to hear that. So I think just getting prepared for this meeting and our series of meetings we've been having, I think right now we have 11 ways of outreach to folks that we just have going on. So our intention really is to find kind of that sweet spot that is the best way to communicate with you. We know that a lot of people use email. So we do try to, we're trying to up our game on email and just making sure we're sending out that information. I think that's why Melissa was encouraging folks to do the sign up for the regional transportation plan emails. We're pretty active on that, giving folks opportunities to know how else to get engaged. We also, once we're able to get back in person, we'll do more of that. We do love to get out, and as planners, we love to get out and talk to folks, come to your meetings, go to where you are and, be able to kind of share with your group. We're happy to do that. We might have a few more months until we're there, but hopefully we will get back to that. But if there is a way that you have that works for you that I didn't mention, let us know. I mean, we would really, that's part of the process, is to make sure we get that input. So we just need to know the best way to do that for you, and we can kind of add it into our toolbox.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
All right, well, maybe if start with Karen, I'll go ahead and start wrapping it up. Thank you again for all the feedback and comments that were asked. Again, if there's something else that you think of that you'd like to share, we're really interested again on how you engage with the process, how you hear about the different workings of the TPO, any suggestions you have on ways to, increase engagement, or, even your own capacity and understanding. Those are kind of those big picture process questions that we're interested in. Obviously, we very much defer to the folks in Chattanooga on the way that it's carried out in a way that is authentic to the region. But this certification report is the opportunity to suggest any feedback or any process improvement. So you should have my email in the chat pod. You'll have that link as well to the survey. And again, I'll just close out and say thank you for your time. Karen, would you mind reiterating on how this will be shared? I think you mentioned that it'll be available on YouTube if folks wanted to refresh themselves or share with others.
It will be available on YouTube. It usually takes anywhere up to an hour really to get it, to stop the stream and to have it on YouTube, like the full meeting. So it should be on there. It should be the first one to show under kind of videos. They're the newest one post first. And if you have any questions, you can email us and I can just send you a link if that's easier. But that will be on there for the foreseeable future.
Well, thank you, Karen, for the excellent facilitation. Thank you, everyone, for participating today. I'll just put in one more plug to check that chat box, save those links. There's good resources there. And then you can expect to see the certification report sometime in July. And I believe the TPO will be posting that to their website and sharing it through their network. So this definitely will not be the last time that you hear from us. So thank you again for your participation, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.